Hi, Marvin. Okay, I think it's 5:04. Okay, let's start. Well, it's 5:05. So I think we can start, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Thank you and welcome everybody to this meetup. That's, as you know, is part of the Vector Talks series. As you know, we will discuss about the role of the SPC, the Safe Program Consultant, especially in the context of a safe implementation. Today, as you see, we have Rune Christiansen with us. Rune is a Safe Program Consultant Trainer, SPCT, serving the EMEA region as advisor on behalf of Scale Agile. Rune has 20 years of experience within the software industry, working with telecommunication as well as the financial and energy sector. He has supported several enterprises transforming their ways of working using lean and agile practices. Hi, Rune. It's a pleasure having you here. And as you know, we have some question for you about the SPC role, and we are very excited to know a lot about the framework and your personal experience as well.
I will do my best. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here, and well, I'll do my best to answer any questions that you or anybody from the audience may have. So let's see what takes us.
For sure. For the people, for the participants we have today with us, if you have questions, you have any comments that you think is relevant, please ask by means of the ask section. You can ask there, and at the end of the conversation we will have, you can directly raise your hand and ask whatever you want to directly to Rune. Okay?
Yeah. And Marco, I think we agreed if somebody feels like writing or asking their questions in Spanish, that's okay. I just need to have it translated.
For sure. If somebody want to write in Spanish, I will translate. No problem. Okay. Well, the first question I have for you. Could you introduce us the main functions and SPC have inside or in a safe implementation?
Yes, and great question, by the way. So normally when I give classes or anything like that, you know, I'm supported by hundreds of slides there, but I don't have any slides today. But what I'm going to do instead to tell you a little bit about the core functions or the primary responsibility of the SPC is that I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna share something, but it's not gonna be slides. You'll be a no slide day today.
Perfect.
So let me know if you can see the framework here.
Yeah, we see the screen.
Okay, so I'm gonna direct you. I'm not gonna be talking about the framework. I'm gonna be directing you down to this little icon down here calling the implementation roadmap, because it really tells a lot about the work of an SPC. So let me just pull it up here. So starting from a different place, the implementation roadmap is our proposed guide on how you can actually start your entire implementation. And the Safe Program Consultant, the SPC, is going to be along in practically every step of the way. So the things I can highlight here as an SPC, it really starts up here when you start talking about starting your safe transformation. Usually what we see is that companies coming from either a waterfall process or what we call team-based or ad hoc agile. And at some point they find out they need to improve, they need to either exchange the waterfall method or they need to start scaling and aligning the agile teams. And that's really where you start considering SAFe. So what the SPC that will be trained within the Scale Agile framework can help with here is start looking at doing some change management, doing some training to some of the senior people within the organization, and start actually having this discussion about why do you want to change? Why is this need for a transformation? What direction are you hoping to take? And then based on this conversation as an SPC, you can get into a dialogue about, well, maybe we as an organization are not that fast when delivering to the market. We want to improve our time to market skills. Well, we can turn our discussion in that direction. Maybe the enterprise has been working with issues with quality within their product development. Well, we can start to address that. So the SPC is highly engaged here at a debate and training level in the beginning of a transformation, where you need to provide some of the senior leaders within the organization with some good reasons why SAFe could be the right choice for you. So especially up here, you can see we have training of lean agile change agents. That's the SPCs, of course. But then we have the training of the executive, the managers, the leaders. That will be the responsibility of the SPCs coming in and helping them understand how we can work more efficiently in a more scaled and agile manner. So that's the whole startup point in here where the SPCs are highly engaged. Then moving on, and you can see we've kind of put it into small pieces. We need to start looking into, or the SPCs need to start looking into, how is this company actually providing value to the customers, to the end users. And we do something called a value stream workshop to try to understand how this is, so that we afterwards can create these agile release trains or the arts where we put in the agile teams. And the SPC, once they have completed their certification, will have access to toolkits that can do this workshop. They will have been trained on actually using this toolkit during the SPC training as well. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, after you're done with this part, you need to start launching your arts. That's when you really get busy as an SPC. We need to align people around a new way of working. We need to create the teams, and we need to have a lot of training. We have both training for the leadership. That's going to work with the specific agile release train. We have some product owner and product manager training that's specific to those roles. We have specific role training to the Scrum Masters, to architects, and to the team members as well. So a huge portion of being an SPC is actually training people. Now, you can be an SPC without training people. You can have SPCs that's just working with coaching within the teams. But you will have some of them, hopefully, that will do the training. It's going to make it much cheaper for the company to have internal SPCs, and those SPCs will have a much better way of applying the knowledge they have from within the business to the SAFe context and helping the business set it up. So the whole initiation of the agile release trains, the SPCs are heavily involved in this. And the work doesn't stop there. You can see that once we launched our arts, we're having this coaching, the execution. Well, that's really starting to have this day-to-day work. Just like you have coaches for normal Scrum teams, well, you have coaches for arts as well. You need to coach people in their new roles. One thing is training them, but a 2-day training course is not going to be enough for them to learn their skills. So the SPCs can help doing community of practice, helping with additional learning sessions, talking to Scrum Masters, to product owners, helping with their various events they have, if it's the daily stand-up or something like that. So that's the whole day-to-day business of an SPC, really helping the agile release train just get better and better all the time. And then when you think your job is done, usually you'll see more agile release trains wanted to be started up in the business. So you can nicely hand off your agile release train and your support with that to start up the next one and the next one and the next one. And at some point, well, depending on how many agile release trains you have, you'll start looking into, well, maybe we need to have some portfolio management, coordinating between the different agile release trains and the different solutions that we're building. So I'm trying to make this short, but it's really hard because an SPC, that's a long learning and execution journey, and it's just exciting all the way through. I hope that answers at least some part of your question.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, there is a lot to do in a safe implementation for an SPC. But in order to do that, what do you think is the minimum recommended background you need to have for an SPC, experience, studies, or what background is the most recommended to have?
Yeah, so that's actually a harder question, I must say. I would say that some years ago when I started, so my background is within software development. I've been a developer, I've been doing integration, I haven't been doing DevOps, but I've been doing all these integration work, helping companies such as Nokia and Ericsson. So my background is very technical. I've been a manager as well, so I have some leadership background in there as well. But the more I come to think of it, and the more transformations I've been in, I would say that, well, there's one thing that's absolutely, well, I wouldn't say that's necessary, but you're going to get a long way with just having some basic agile experience. Having worked with agile teams before, having worked with Scrum, having worked with Kanban is probably the groundwork to get it done. I think when you go and look at the course itself, it says that you need to have 3+ years. Well, for me, it's not about how many years you've done it. It's more like how much work and how much you have learned and achieved in that sense. But agile as the core is really what's important. One of the other things that's listed as recommended is you have some kind of domain knowledge either within software development or testing or these kind of things. And when you look at SAFe and when you look at product development, it really started out within, well, software development, product development. But the more transformations I've been in, I've seen that enterprises can really benefit from having a variety of different SPCs that has both the agile experience, that has the SPC, meaning the core knowledge about the framework, but then having this different skills. So again, I'm in technology, I'm in software development. That's certainly something that helps you, but having skills within leadership, having SPCs that are functioning as leaders is absolutely crucial. I have some very, very excellent SPC colleagues who are experienced within design thinking and helping evolve and generate new products. So it's really a consultant answer I'm going to give you. It depends, and it's not one thing. It's not just either your software or not. At some point in your transformation, and I know with the introduction of say 5.0, we started talking about business agility. You want to expand into the rest of the business. You want to talk to legal. You want to talk to HR. You want to talk to marketing. If there's one thing I promise you is that I'm probably not going to be coaching marketing. That's not my core competence. So having an SPC with some kind of marketing insider background, well, that's going to help that part of the transformation. So it's a versatile answer, I would say. Different skills are needed at different points, and having different skills in your, well, we call it the lean agile center of excellence, where the coaches could be or the SPCs could be, is just going to benefit everybody on the journey that they have.
Perfect. So you mind having a team of SPCs working together, right?
Yeah. So you will typically see you will have more than one SPC within organization. I think there are some guidelines that you will have between 3 to 5 per 100 employees. I mean, it really differs. I've worked in organization with 500, 600, 700 people, where we were a team of 6 SPCs with different backgrounds working together. And that works really well. It's really hard being the only person who knows, because everybody's going to come to you at the same time. And more importantly, you don't have anybody to knowledge share with. Then at least you need to go out and get through, get your knowledge from other places, get your experience from other places, which is a good thing anyway. Mm-hmm. I can show you one thing, though. Now that I don't have the slides, I'll show you something else instead. So if you take a look at, just press the share button here. Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Yeah. So part of a core part of the framework is these competencies that we have. We have 7 competencies in total in the framework. We have our button here. Not that it's the least important. We have lean agile leadership. We have continuous learning culture, team and technical agility, so on and so forth. So having SPCs with knowledge within the various fields. So like I mentioned, leadership, having some leaders trained as an SPC so they actually know the frameworks very deeply is a huge advantage, especially when leaders talk to other leaders. They should be able to help each other in learning these things. You will have your SPCs that are really focused around team and technical agility. So you can have some technical SPCs. They have the SPC background, and maybe they know about test-driven development, behavior-driven development. Maybe they know about setting up continuous delivery pipelines. You will have somebody that's really, really great with these, again, like I mentioned, design thinking tools, using various techniques to do that. And for some companies, it's not, maybe not the majority, but some of them, we're having these, what we call the enterprise solutions, the really, really, really big systems that we're building. So that could be, for example, Volvo building an autonomous vehicle where you maybe have 20 arts working together. You have a high level of compliance you need to adhere to. It's just a different skill set, understanding, working in these very, very big areas. So if you're working in that, you want to have somebody with the skills here. And again, lean portfolio management. Portfolio management is not an easy thing. Having the skills in technical agility and at the same time lean portfolio management, that's probably a little bit rare. So training somebody in the portfolio function to start to work in more lean and agile ways is definitely an advantage when you get to this point. Let me just show you again, where you start to extend to the portfolio and have somebody within the portfolio team become a trained SPC as well. So that there's different answers to that question, and it really depends and evolves throughout the transformation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What do you think? What are the metrics for an SPC? I mean, how do we know if somebody working as SPC is performing well or not, or how can we measure that?
That's a hard question. So I should almost ask you the other question back. How do you know if anybody is doing well in their job? I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you are an SPC doesn't mean that I will pull out a metric from the framework and say this is how you measure a person, because it doesn't really work like that. But so what I've seen in some organizations, developers were measured on how much code they were writing, which resulted in the developers starting writing a lot of code instead of doing functions. So they made a lot of code and they got, big salaries for doing that. But I mean, is that really the behavior you're trying to do? And we really need to make sure and be very careful about these metrics, because metrics drive behavior. So be very careful about that. When I try to coach other SPCs, both from a SPCT and from a leadership perspective, I tend to use some more softer approaches and some more, let's say, qualitative skills to really understand whether the SPC is doing well. So what I'm looking at is some things that, well, some of the things are a bit problematic sometimes in the enterprises I go into. So first of all, acknowledge that you make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. Are two very, very important things, because when you go into something like a transformation, you will make mistakes. You won't find all the answers in the framework. That's why we have principles in there to try to guide you, but you can't answer it right the whole time. And as agilists, we like to make experiments. And if you do experiments, you're going to fail sometimes. And that's part of the job. But continuing to do these mistakes and learning from them, I mean, for me, that's an important metric. Giving and receiving feedback. So giving and receiving feedback is absolutely crucial. The role is called SPC, Safe Program Consultant. It's not called coach. So just because you're taking a 4-day training to become an SPC doesn't magically make you a coach. So you need to learn some skills about feedback, both sitting in and do active listening, and then afterwards giving feedback that can help the other person in their role grow. I mean, that's a very important thing to me as well. And then again, I came in as a very technical person, as an SPC. What's really important, and that's not only for an SPC, that goes for practically anybody working in, I would say, any environment, that's the ability to obtain new knowledge. So I was very technical. Then I started evolving into design thinking and learning about that. And then I started to learning about lean portfolio management. It's not something you do overnight. It's something that you spend a lot of time on. You start to help. Maybe you're really a trainee in the beginning, but you need to get new knowledge. You need to build, this thing we call T skills, or maybe E skills. It has so many names these days. Learn new things, try new things, get new knowledge. Share with others. Otherwise, how can you actually learn in the first place? You need to be able to share all of these things with the rest of the team, the other SPCs, the other people in the organization, the Scrum Masters, the product owners. Well, you shouldn't keep all this knowledge to yourself. If we want to grow as an organization, you need to be able to share. And then a very important skill, and I really must underline this one, it's the ability to be stubborn and be able to take your time, because a transformation, whether it's a safe transformation or it's any other transformation where you're actually going in and changing the central ways the company is working, it's going to take time. You're going to hit the walls, and you're going to have to try again and again. And you need to be able to wait to see the results. So a lot of this is the quality. So how do you measure this? I would say the best way that I've seen as a leader to do this, again, this is a soft way to do it. If I'm doing a evaluation, it's such a bad word for that. Let's say evaluation of an SPC. I usually do interviews. So if that SPC has been working with an agile release train, I will go and interview the release train engineer. I will interview the product manager. I will talk to the system architect. I'll talk to some of the team members as well, getting input about how they're doing. Sometimes I'll do these, I think they call them 360 degrees surveys, asking, people in a higher level compared to the SPC and around and lower, getting all this feedback. So me, as myself, as a metric, I require to have feedback in order to give feedback to that person. So I would say that's the way I would do it. There is no hard metric as I see it. And if there was, I would make a new company and probably sell that product myself.
Well, so the question right now is, in all your experience, what was the bigger challenge you have faced during a safe implementation?
That's a mean question. Oh, there's been so many challenges. Biggest challenge or worst challenge? I think I can combine the two, and it's really not a good. It's really not a good experience, but well, at least I learned from it. When you're running transformations, change is just hard, and people get change fatigue. They get tired of all this change. And I was working it's called the LACE. It's this lean agile center of excellence that's trying to support and drive the transformation. And we've been working for, I think it was 2 years within this transformation. I was a normal permanent employee in there, and you could see there was coming more and more resistance to changing more. people were saying, well, I think actually we're good enough now. We don't need to take any further steps. It's okay where we are. And that really started to split our little team, because some of them were comfortable in the place the company was now. And maybe some of the rest of us, me included, were like, well, continuous improvement, well, actually relentless improvement is essential if we want to move forward, if we want to expand into other areas. So the whole discussion in the Lays was kind of split, where half of them wanted to stay where we were because it was good enough, and half of us wanted to move forward with even more ambitious targets. And I mean, we got into some nasty discussions, where you actually sit and, well, fortunately it was in a closed room, but where you unconstructively sit and yell and argue at each other, and nothing really good comes from that. I think that was probably the toughest part of my SPC job ever. I've been in many situations with agile release trains, with RTEs, with business owners doing weird stuff and injecting work, but that one, where the core team supporting the transformation was getting tired, was starting to argue, that was a nasty part, and I hope I have learned from that, so I'll be able to get out of that situation if I'm ever in that again.
And can I ask what was the end? What was the end of this situation? if you want, you can answer.
It's a simple answer, and thank you for asking. I'm no longer with the company. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so, thank you.
It ended where it ended, and maybe that was for the better. Sometimes when you're in a transformation for a very long time, you get tired from it, and you need to get some fresh air to breathe once in a while. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. Sometimes you need to get to new places, to get a new start, to bring your knowledge with you, and to help some other people, where you actually feel that the work you do is going to give more than the place you were. And that's okay. You learn to live with that.
Perfect. So thinking in a safe implementation, what are the different focuses an SPC should have along this implementation? What are the main areas you must to be very focused along the implementation?
Yeah. I think I'm going to show you I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you the roadmap first. That's probably the best way to do it, because it really differs. But you need to be able to, as an SPC, as any change agent you need to be able to put on a different hat. So as you can see here, if you're an SPC in the very, very early stages of a transformation, you need to be able to talk to senior leadership. So I've seen a lot of organizations where you see safe and agile as such, it's growing from the bottom. They are allowed to start some teams. They may even be allowed to start an agile release train. But at some point, you can get no further unless you actually get leadership support and buy-in. And that's the whole reason that we are having this training of executive and managers and leaders. Because if you don't have leadership supporting your transformation, in my opinion, you will only get that far. You will never be able to reach business agility because you will stall there. You have a system that's in place, you have a hierarchy, you have a functional hierarchy in the organization, you have a way of working. And the only people who have the mandate to change that way of working, that's the leaders. That's how the system works. So when you're in the very early stages, you need to, if you can't do it yourself, if you don't have the skills to talk to leadership, find somebody who can. If they're not an SPC, well, team up with them so that you can help them work together with these leaders, because you'll need to get some executive sponsorship in here, and that requires some special skills. There's usually always one or two in the organization who can see these new ways of working. You need to find them. You need to drink a lot of coffee, have a lot of coffee discussing with these people, and starting to explain. You're not going to go into the executive office and say, hey, by the way, let's take 2 days out of your calendar and do leading safe. It's never going to work. This is going to be slow. This is going to have a discussion with them, and slowly building that relationship with leadership. So there's a lot of relationship building in the initial parts here, either by yourself or somebody else who know it. And that's a really hard skill. That's not something we spend a lot of time on in the SBC class, but we do have some exercises that will train you to do what we call the elevator pitch to senior leadership. It's quite a fun exercise, actually, where you as a team get to build your own pitch to give to leadership. And then us as the instructors, we will come in and we will we'll get feedback. Let's just put it that way. So that was a really, really fun exercise. So there's a lot of relationship building in here for that part. Especially in the preparation for the art launch, you are going to be really, really busy. You're going to be busy. First of all, you need to have somebody with training skills. So if again, like I mentioned before, you're not forced to train just because you're an SPC, but you are enabled to train. That means that once you become an SPC, you can train the various courses. We have some enablements that's going to help you train, but having training skills is something that's really, really valuable as an SPC, and it's going to help you lift the entire transformation. The alternative to doing that's to hire some external help, and that might be a good idea if you are really new to all of this, to get some help from people who have done this before. That's what I did in my first transformation. I was really new. I knew software development, I knew Agile, but I hadn't tried Safe before. So we aligned with some of the Scale Agile partners at the time and brought them in to help us get the transformation started. But training skills, really essential, which also means that when you're in the starting phase, you really have this instructor hat on. So we can talk about different things that you need to do. You're in negotiation phase and diplomatic phase up here. Then you're really in the instructor phase in the whole preparation of the art launch. You're instructing how to be a product owner. You're instructing how to be a Scrum Master. You're instructing how to lead in a transformation. So that's a bit like you need to do this, and this. And that's a different kind of person who need to do that. There's different kind of skills to get that, to pull in the experience you have within the business. Because one thing is being able to train the courses that we have. Another thing is actually to applying it into what you have in the business. Who are your customers? Knowing who your customers are, knowing the products that you sell is really going to help you when you do the product owner course, because then you can actually relate it to the work. When you are perhaps going to teach the architecture course, it's really good to be aligned with some of the architecture people, know how things are set up. And when you're talking leadership, well, it might be a good idea to know and talk to some of the leaders. So training and instructor skill set is something that's really, really crucial here in the preparation for the art launch. And of course, training the teams and launching the art itself. I had a discussion in my last implementing course. There was 3 release train engineers. So those are the people, let's call them the senior or chief scrum masters of the agile release trains, for lack of a better word. We have an RTE course that we usually tell RTEs to take maybe a year after they started their first agile release train, because it's really an experience-based course where actually you have RTEs sharing between each other. So we actually suggest that new RTEs that are starting up actually become SPCs to really know the framework. So a starting point for an RTE could very well be to be the SPC as well. Mm-hmm. And then once you're finished with the instruction, you can take your instructor hat off, and then you can put on your coach hat. You maybe not have the skills, but I'm sure you will have other people in the organization who maybe have some coaching skills that you can knowledge share with, because I would say probably the first 3 PIs. So a PI is like these 8 to 12 weeks or periods with about 5 iterations or sprints, if you will, in here. And the first 3 PIs, the programming course, that those are crucial for coaching. So you gave them these 2-day courses, some of them 3-day courses, but for you that have taken these kind of courses, whether it's SAFe or it's from Scrum Alliance or anything, you know it's not enough. You need to have hands-on training, and you will have a ton of questions. So being able to go in every day, support the teams with any questions they have. I think we set up a meeting, me and a friend, called the Scrum Master Hospital. So the Scrum Master Hospital was that all the Scrum Masters, when they had problems or they couldn't resolve conflicts or any issues they had with the transformation, they could come to the Scrum Master Hospital. They could talk to me and the other coach. They could come and cry. They could come and yell. They could come and get good ideas. But having this dialogue on how to be a better Scrum Master or better in any of the roles that you're doing is another crucial skill to have. Being able to listen, again, back to the whole feedback and listening to people, very crucial skill to have here in the arts execution part. And that's really the more mature an agile release change becomes, the more coach you have to be. Coaching meaning in this sense that you have to help them find their own answers. You put them in a course, they have a bit of experience, they need to be able slowly to generate their own answers, because at some point, you as an SBC, you're going to phase slowly out, because there's going to be other release trains to start. You're still going to be there and help, but they will have to rely on each other as Scrum Masters. They will have to rely on the work with the RTE as well. So learning them really to be self-sustainable here, that's a crucial part. And then, just like in the beginning, where it was really a dialogue, and it was really, sometimes I use the word political, difficult to get that started. It's really the same skills you need to find again once you start to expand to the portfolio. Because suddenly you're back into this, you have some new people. These people have been, maybe they've been running projects before. In SAFe, we don't have projects, although I've seen periods where you're running both projects and what we call them epics. So you need to train the people in the portfolio function. You will need to coach them on why we're not doing waterfall anymore, why we're not doing budgeting 1 year in advance, why we're trying to implement some lean tools such as the Kanban, portfolio Kanban in there, and really start to work with these people who have been very successful in their job so far. You just need to help them tweak their thinking, just like you did with the leaders up here. So it's actually good if you were involved in the beginning of a transformation to reuse these skills when you start about talking to the portfolio, extended to the portfolio.
Well,
that's a long, I know it's a long answer, but I mean, so you can hear, I've been working for many years as an SBC, and my life has never been boring. It's been super hard. It's never been easy, but it's never been boring.
Definitively. Definitely. So this is a very tough question, I think, because sometimes, well, a lot of times I hear people saying that SAFe is not agile. So what you will say to these people?
That's a mean question. Why do people think SAFe is not agile? Oh, where do I start with that? I'll start with smiling and being a nice person. Well, so funny thing is, I have, and trust me, I'm not lying here. I have never heard people say SAFe was not agile, but I have read a lot of articles where people say SAFe is not agile. So I do enjoy reading agile articles or anything as such, and I do come across these statements that saying SAFe is not agile. And I hope that it's the missing understanding of the core parts of the framework. That's my hope. I'm not saying people haven't studied it enough, because the thing is, I've not talked to these people. I've just read their articles, but based on what I read, I think there's some parts of the framework they may not have experienced themselves. They have read in other articles, they have known by talking to people, because as I see it, we're trying to be as very agile as we can. And let me try to emphasize some of this. See if I can get to share my screen. So I'll jump back here to the framework. It's a good question though. So safe scaled agile framework is based on, well, just like Scrum is based on some core values, some principles, and those things. Safe is the same thing. Safe is based on a number of core values. We have them listed down here. The core values is talking about that we need to be transparent. So it's talking about transparency at all levels of the organization, being able to see what we're doing, having access to information. All the different Kanban systems we have should be visible to people so they have the best possible knowledge to actually do their work. Another core value is alignment. So if you want to be aligned, alignment and transparency really go hand in hand here. So transparency alignment, I find personally, is very agile and necessary to function properly. Another core value is building quality, knowing that postponing testing and fixing defects until the end is simply not sustainable. You need to build it in the whole time, having these really great solutions that you do. For me, that's agile as well. Then we have the last core value, that's called program execution. And it may sound a bit rough, but I mean, that's why we're here. We're trying to run a business. We are trying to deliver solutions that delight our customers. We need to be able to execute on the product and solution we build. So those 4 core values really go hand in hand and really form the basic for the rest of the framework. Now, we have a lean agile mindset in here. So part of what we're basing our framework on is something, I don't know if you know it, is this agile manifesto written a couple of years back about some very, very clever people. And we do spend a lot of time during the class to go in and understand the agile manifesto, why it was made, who made it, and how we can actually try to apply it within the way we're working. So the agile manifesto is part of the work that we do in here. We also added a number of what we call our safe principles in here, and the safe principles are really helping us. I would say when we're talking, safe is about scaling. When we're scaling, we're trying to apply some scaling principles in here that are going to help us seeing our product delivery from a more systemic point of view. So we've added in these, but many of them you will see has a very close relationship to the Agile Manifesto. So for example, let's see, some of our principles is about our cadence and our synchronization. So if we look at the Agile Manifesto, it talks about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So let's take PI planning, for example. So the PI planning event is about bringing together the entire Agile release train. That could be these 50 to 125 people, so to speak, and having these people work together, understand together, break down their work together, plan it together, and finally, they will go off and they will commit to the work together. In my sense, that's really the core of Agile, being able to do all these things together, not only as a team, but in our case, it's a really big team. It's an Agile release train, a team of teams. So for me, that's the core. Agile Manifesto talks about working software. We emphasize working software probably, I think, all over the entire framework. Teams are still doing reviews at a team level, going into depth about the work they did, focusing on working software. And then again, because we're working in a scaled environment, we're having these demos called system demos. System demos is about showing integrated functionality, whatever you're building. If it's a software or hardware solution, doesn't really matter. But what we're showing is the working software, but the integrated working software, because we're taking work in from so many different teams. Customer collaboration, an example. So customer collaboration, the ability to work together with the customer to find the best possible solutions. So it's only become very prominence in the latest release. We've always used design thinking, at least in the transformations I've been in, but now the customer centricity as a mindset that we have in there, always putting the customer in the center of what we do, and then using design thinking tools, using personas, using user story mapping, using customer journeys, are all methods and tools that are centered around the customer, trying to bring the best possible solution to them. So in my sense, that's very agile. Let's take the last value. Let's take responding to change. That's over following a plan. That's a bit hard one once in a while. So what we know, and you also know that when you're running Scrum, is that we need to respond to change. That's really what agile is about. That's being able to change direction. We also know that changing direction is not free. If you're doing a complete replanning of your sprint or iteration on day 1, it's pretty cheap. If you're doing it on day 10, it's pretty expensive to do that. So we do take a systemic view on that. Let's take this little epidemic called Corona that hit us in the middle of a program increment. We needed to immediately rethink the way we were working, the solutions we're developing, because suddenly we had a whole community of partners and enterprises who could not train remotely. Remote was not part of the delivery we had. So we needed, in the middle of our program increment, to pretty much stop most of the things we're doing, rethinking what can we do to support our customers in order to deliver remotely so that they can keep functioning with their transformations and so we can keep surviving as a company. And we did that. Within a couple of weeks, we started putting out the first increments of working software. Well, they were not perfect, but they were parts of it, and we started to build on that. So responding to change, absolutely. Just because we had a PI plan doesn't mean that we can't change the plan. It just means we need to consider that it has an impact in the end. And I could probably continue. We have 2 of our SAFe principles. Some of my really favorite ones. The one is called unlocking the intrinsic motivation of knowledge workers, speaking to what actually makes our core most valuable thing in the organization, the people that are working there. How do we make them even better? How do we make them motivated? How can we help and support leadership in actually supporting this? And we're talking about decentralizing decision-making, moving the authority of where decisions are taken to where the information really is. So this, I'm pretty passionate about this part of the framework. And will you see a lot of perfect implementation of SAFe where all this is in place? No, you won't. Why? Because it's a transformation. It's something that you evolve on. Will you see a lot of Scrum implementations that are living all of the Scrum values and following it by the book? Probably not. That's also a journey. Mm-hmm. So that's my feeling. I love Scrum. I love Kanban. I'm just having a hard time not seeing how the foundation we have in SAFe is not agile. That's my thought on that.
Great. So in order to be an SPC, you have to follow a course that is the Implementing SAFe course, right? We are gonna co-teach one of them on November the 10th, and I will ask you if you can give us an overview of the Implementing SAFe course, what the learners could expect in the course.
Great question. You know what? I'm getting in such a good mood to show everything from the framework rather than showing it from slides. So I'm going to continue to do that. So you can see here on the framework in the bottom right corner, we're having this SAFe program consultant icon. So if you want to yourself read a bit more about it. So again, the framework page here, you can click anything. Click any text, any icon, anything, and you'll be led to an article that will tell you about it. And that's for free. You don't need to take a course to do that. You need to take a course to get all the depth and the experience. So let me I'm not going to read everything that's in here because that's going to be really boring, but I'm going to go down here to training SPCs. So there's a link here to the Implementing SAFe course, because then I'll just be able to show you some of the topics that we actually cover. And you know what? It's actually a lot. The Implementing Safe course, which is going to give you the opportunity to be certified as SPC, is really a two-part course. The first part that's covering the first 2 days, well, actually sometimes it covers 2.5 days, that's a little bit depending, is the course that we call Leading Safe. But it doesn't mean that people who have already taken Leading Safe will say, oh, that means I just need to do the same thing over again, because you don't. This is a different thing. One of the first things that you can do as an SPC once you've been certified, that is teaching the Leading Safe class. So what we focus on here on the first 2 days is, first of all, going very, very deep in the various topics, but also teaching you how to teach the class. So this is really the first couple of days here is really a train the trainer session, where you get to know, why are we running this exercise? What's the expected outcome? How can I tell this to leaders? How can I tell this to other people in organizations? So it's a different angle. And because we're turning it into a train the trainer session, it usually runs a bit more than 2 days to get that deep experience. So what's covered in here for those of you who haven't taken Leading Safe? So apart, of course, from the introduction, why we're doing this in the first place, and just to support my thing of why I believe Safe is agile, is that Leading Safe is a lot of the time taught to leaders. So we're having a topic in here calling Becoming a Lean Agile Leader. And I would say that's probably the majority of an entire day in the class, talking about Lean, talking about Agile Manifesto, talking about safe principles. So before we even let the learners start learning about the practices, about doing iterations, about doing planning and those kind of things, we want them to fundamentally know the principles and values under the framework. We're not going to set them free with a hammer on this until they actually know how to use that hammer. That's very, very important for me. We're going to be talking about creating these high-performance teams, cross-functional teams that can be as independent as possible. And then, and this is one of my favorite parts of the class, that's this experience, the program increment planning, the PI planning, where we are running a simulation exercise for more than an hour, where we put the entire class up, make small teams, and they learn how to get through and be able to afterwards coach an PI planning event. It's really, really fun. We try to role play it as much as we can. Then we have releasing on demand, talking about DevOps. DevOps not only as technical part, but also about how you need to have, just like you need to have a customer-centric mindset, you need to have a DevOps mindset as well, needing to think both as development and operations. So that's a bit software-centric in that sense. We'll talk about business solutions, and we'll definitely talk about lean portfolio management in these 2 first days course. So that's I usually call it the extended Leading Safe, where you really are trained to be a trainer in that course. And then in the second part of the class, that's days 3 and 4. That's where we take on our Implementing Safe hat, because here we're really talking the entire time about this implementation roadmap that I showed you. We'll take you through the details of all of the roadmap, and we'll go through some very, very detailed and exciting exercises on how to work in there. So again, if you remember, we're going to talk about reaching this tipping point. How do you talk to management? How do you help convince them this is the right direction to go? We'll talk about how do you design an implementation. So you'll hear a lot of experience from the trainers, and how have we done it before? What have we learned? What were our mistakes that we did? Because of course we did that, and how could we actually give that to the learners? Talking about launching the agile release trains, a lot of things that need to be in place. Again, based on some good practices we have, we'll share the toolkits that we made and that we've got a lot of feedback on over time on how to use that in your first launch. And again, if you remember, coaching the art execution, how do you coach that? How do you help them improve? How do you help them improve by themselves afterwards? Extending into the portfolio, you launch a lot of agile release trains. Suddenly you need your portfolio function to be agile as well. How do you do that? What do you apply in there? We talk about sustaining and improving. So again, this point you might get to in your transformation where you think you're good enough. Well, the second you think you're good enough, trust me, I'll find 20 things that you still can improve in there, but that doesn't help. You need to be able to learn and improve by yourself. And we'll be talking a lot about that in this part here. There's two major exercises that we go through in this part of the class, and that's how you actually create these agile release trains, how you form them from the value streams, trying to identify the systems that you have in your organization. It's one of the very important toolkits that we have available. And the other very interesting and important exercise, that's what we call the inspect and adapt. Inspect and adapt, let's call it, it's a combined demo and retrospective, but for the entire agile release train. So imagine running, and I tried that, running an retrospective for 150 people all together to find a common cause. Really, really interesting. So we're going to give a lot of help and guidance, and we're going to let you try how to do it and learn from your experience. So that's kind of covering the 4 days, and it's not usually. It's always a very fun, but it's a very hard course. It's probably our most advanced course that we have, because afterwards, your job is to train, your job is to lead, your job is to coach an entire organization. So we need to do our utmost to give you the best tools and mindset at hand to do that.
Great. I'm very excited about it.
I love that class.
To co-teach with you. So, okay, it's 6 p.m. We have time for our participants to freely ask you question, Rune. So I have 2 questions in the chat. The first one is from Eduardo M. He said, in my case, I want to specialize me as a Scrum Master, but I don't have a broad career in technology consulting. What recommendations can you make in this regard as a complementary training?
So complementary training for Scrum Master.
Yeah.
Can I assume that it's in a safe setup, or because that's really my focus here? I'll assume that. So I also have a PSM2 from Scrum.org on the side of my Scrum Master training. I do enjoy that. But if you're talking safe, there's different things to do. First of all, most important thing, practice as a Scrum Master. That is the most important thing. You will have a very hard time teaching and coaching anyone if you haven't tried it yourself. That's my first rule, really. And of course, we have our Safe Scrum Master course, which is helping people getting started on their journey as a Scrum Master. And then we're having I have so many favorite classes, but the Advanced Scrum Master class is really, really interesting, because the Safe Scrum Master class will teach you the basics of becoming a Scrum Master. The Advanced Scrum Master class, it's going to teach you the advanced stuff. It's going to really teach you with how to look at flow, how to make good retrospectives, how to improve the team towards high performance. Again, it's a class, it's 2 days, it's going to be a help on your journey. What I would combine that with is knowledge sharing with other Scrum Masters. There's nothing as efficient as sharing knowledge and learning from other people. I have learned the most from people who are much smarter than me. So trying to work with somebody with above your experience, I mean, I love that. That's why I learn the most. And then experiment. Do experiment, read something on the internet, read some books. I mean, I have a bookshelf over here on my left side. I think half of them is about something a Scrum Master could start doing. Something I really enjoy Scrum Masters to help them with is helping the product owner. How can you as a Scrum Master help the product owner? So I like, especially in the early parts of my career, to read product owner courses, take product owner courses, read books about it, so I could help my product owner be a better product owner. maybe you are more into user experience design. Well, you can start to add on your skills as a user experience, not to do it, but to help coach the team. There's nothing better to do than knowing something and then starting asking the teams, couldn't we talk about this user experience? I've read this thing about, I don't know, some specific part about the user experience. Should we try that as an experiment? So always learning more, always getting more knowledge. That's going to help me. That helped me.
Perfect. Another one question I have here. We have two raised hands here. Maybe we can directly let the people ask.
Absolutely.
Eduardo Aguilera. Hi, Eduardo. Okay, I have another one. BM Sancho. I don't know. Can you hear us, Sancho? No.
No, we can't hear you, Eduardo.
No. We don't hear anything. Maybe it's something that we can.
Maybe you could unmute him sometimes in Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another thing you need to learn as an SPC. You need to learn how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
I needed to learn that as well. All the new skills.
No, we don't hear you.
Otherwise, if we're having technical difficulties, just write it.
Put your question here, and I'm gonna read it. I have another one. Have you ever worked with comparativeagility.com to measure? It is better digital or manual tools to do this stuff.
I'm on mute now. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Yes. Hi, Eduardo.
Hi. No, that's the question. Yesterday I was in the webinar with other staff, and we have seen the comparativeagility.com tool, and for me it's very interesting, and I will know your opinion about that.
Okay, great question. So I think you're probably in the webinar with one of my colleagues called Andrew Sales, and the problem is he knows 10 times as much about that than I do. But so what I used to run these agility assessments in the organizations. I used to run them with Excel, and it used to be very hard because it's just not easy. And I know we're talking about people interactions over processes and tools. Well, sometimes processes and tools is actually going to help you as people and interactions. So the comparative agility is, for the rest of you also, it's an application that we use to do what we call a business agility assessment. So within the framework, I'm just going to show you here while I'm talking. I'm getting so used to that. So if you see here, we have business agility part up here. Over here in the corner, we have this thing called measure and grow. And the measure and grow, that's an article combined with a number of assessment questions you can give in order to get an idea about where your organization are from a lean, agile, safe perspective, at least. So instead of using Excel to do it, it's a built-in application that you, as member of the community, if you take one of our classes, you will have free access to that. And one of the interesting things about this, that not only can you go in and measure your organization and help them improve. So think about it as a review and inspect and adapt within the organization, but you could also do it towards other companies worldwide. So you can see, how am I doing as my company compared to other companies, and how we're doing there. So if you want to make it easy, if you're a big organization, comparative agility is the tool that will support this business agility assessment. And I find it so intuitive and so easy, and I wish I had it a year ago, 1.5 years ago, when I needed it. So I'm just happy it's here. It's going to ease your work. If you want to learn more about it, I think Eduardo, if you saw the webinar, I think there's one more available within our community that you can go and see. But that's really it. I find it useful. I find it easy to use. I find it easy to set up. And you know what? It's for free as long as you're a community member.
I know. So it takes a lot of time, no, for part of the team when you need a lot of parameters, no, all the competencies on all question and insert this question in the tool. So it takes a lot of time for the part of the team. So
the answer is, Eduardo, no, because what we did, we took all the questions and we put them into the tool for you. So everything, when you become a certified member in SAFE, you have access to the tools, you have access to the surveys, and we put all the questions in there. So you just need to set it up and run it. No need to add in all those things. We already took care of that for you.
I don't know. It's for the part of the development team, no, to populate the survey. I think it take a lot of time, no, because you launch this survey how many times? One per month or?
Yeah, no. So that's a good tough question. No, I would not run it every month. I would not at all. I would probably run it every half a year, because you need to go in and you're getting my opinion here. I hope Andy didn't say anything else, but you need to go in and you need to do the evaluation. And based on the evaluation, you need to do some changes. I mean, inspecting without adapting is completely pointless. So if you're just running assessment, but not improving anything, well, you're going to see the same assessment. So that would really annoy me. So I would say my answer, I hope Andy said the same thing, would be like once every half year, or as much as the team finds value in. So that's my recommendation. And I'll go and talk to my good colleague Andy afterwards and see if I gave you the correct answer. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, I have another one from the chat. I would like to know about any hard experience implementing extended portfolio phase related to company areas, no IT areas, more commodities areas.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm so happy you said hard experience, because it is hard. I've been working with a couple of companies on this. I would say the first and most difficult thing that you're ever going to get here is trying to get some time to speak to the people. Just like I told in the beginning, having access to executives and getting time to help explain principles and values to them, you're going to need to have the same work cut out for you to talk to the portfolio people. These people are successful people. They have been doing well for a very long time. You need to come in with a pretty good argument that what you're doing is right. So what you do beforehand is know who you're talking to. I usually call it doing empathy interviews. So trying to, it sounds very formal, but start with a coffee discussion. Try to find out what's troubling them in the portfolio. Some things that I've seen is that companies usually track how long time it takes to do a project. So I've been in companies where the lead time from start to end of a project was close to 2 years. You could start having a discussion with these people. Do you think that's acceptable? Do you think that's a good and fast way to get changes to the market? That could be one thing. Another thing, dialogue I would start with them is that how many projects do you actually work on right now? And sometimes you'll be surprised. It's usually not 10 or 20. It's usually 90 or 100. If you're bold, meaning that if you want to take a risk, then one thing I found very, very useful is that, let me see if I can show you. Let's see if I can show you. Right. So up here on the portfolio level, we have this thing called the portfolio Kanban. The portfolio Kanban is really just a simple overview of, in this case, how we show the epics that we are working on. So a very powerful thing I have found, if you can work, you don't need to work with the senior executives. You can work with one of the assistants within the portfolio function. Is that create this Kanban here, put it somewhere visible, and then find all those projects that are going on right now in the organization, just right now, and start to add them in here. So you may need to use some different phases. If you're using waterfall, you're probably having some kind of PMI approach to it, but start adding it. And what happens then is that you will see some senior leaders, even executives sometimes coming up and asking, what is this thing? What's going on here? And then you can say, well, this is the amount of projects that's going on, you know, and sometimes you'll see these hundreds of projects going on, and you will just start to have a dialogue with people about all these things going on. And maybe we should talk about limiting the amount of work going on, having smaller batches, getting things faster through the system. So instead of taking on your trainer hat, you have to be a little bit more sneaky about this one. You need to start to talk about it in an actual way. Do we need to have that many things in flight? Should we stop some of the work that we're doing and finish some of the other things? That will trigger these things. It's a little bit risky approach, but I found it very efficient if you're permitted to put this up in a company. But you need to start small. Unless you have senior executive buy-in to say we're going lean portfolio, you need to do it in small steps. You need to do it well, agile as such, small batches, small experiments, try to see what's working, and be prepared to fail and try something else. So I hope that helped a little bit. It's a topic I love to talk about as well, and it's just as hard as talking to senior leaders about principles and values, I think.
Perfect. We have time for more questions. Next one, Ian. Sancho, we can hear you. Well, we have another question from Jose Antonio. Jose Antonio?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Okay. Hi, and thank you for this webinar. It's so interesting. I have a question. In all your experience, have you set up any solution train? Is this situation how common this situation? No, and if you did, what is the hardest part of this implementation we have to take care in order to do it successfully?
Yeah, really great question, Jose. I love that one. And yes, I have, and no, I haven't. So that's a tricky answer, and I'll try to explain it, because I set up a solution train, but we didn't call it a solution train. And I didn't do that for several reasons. So solution trains, let me try you. I'll just show you while I'm speaking. That usually helps a little bit. So solution trains is something that's happening here on the large solution layer. So the whole idea behind SAFe is that not the idea, but we're having these agile release trains. They are producing a solution together. Yeah. Working in this, what we call value streams, and they're creating solutions. Sometimes your solutions require more than a single agile release train to work with. So for example, like I mentioned, that could be Volvo having 20 agile release trains working on the same car, or you could have, we have some of the large plane companies working with software on fighter jets and other systems. It requires thousands of employees to do it. So when you have really large solutions with a lot of people, then we are having another construct. So you're having a team down here, then you have a team of teams, that's the agile release trains, and the solution trains is really a team of teams. So yeah. It's an agile release train of agile release trains. So it's really big. The challenge here is that I've seen I've seen companies set up solution trains where they didn't need to. They were making it more like an organizational construct. They wanted to have more people filled into the roles. And the problem is you need to be careful with adding more bureaucracy into your setup. The more levels you put in, the more difficult it is to be real agile and change direction. So do you need it? Sometimes you do. If you're having really big solutions, you just need to be very careful about just because you have 2 agile release trains automatically making a solution train. Maybe these 2 release trains could actually coordinate together. Where's the right spot? So in my situation, I had 4 agile release trains and they were working on the same solution. But we started up with starting 1 train, taking part of the organization. Then we started another train, then we started another train, and then we started another train. So we did a slow incremental startup. And what happened was, as we added more trains into the setup, the coordination between the trains started to become problematic. You would have 1 train that would have a feature in there that was priority number 1, but that was dependent on a feature from another train, and that was priority 25. So suddenly you're having a feature that will not be done in 1 train and was dependent on another feature in another train, and suddenly, well, this is becoming less and less agile. So what the solution train helps you with is trying to align that you're making the same thing at the same time, and trying to be able to create an integrated solution. But it's a balance. In my opinion, this is a balance. Sometimes it's obvious. If you have 1,000 people working on the same solution, that's pretty easy. If you have a small amount of people, you need to figure out when is the right time to put in these extra set of roles to do it. And it took us 2 years. We didn't find out until 2 years that we really needed it. And we didn't start by calling a solution train. We started using some of the practices in there. Like we started having our product managers meeting before PI planning, aligning backlogs. That got us some of the way. Then we started having the product managers meeting us after the PI planning together with the release train engineers, saying, okay, maybe we should make a retrospective about how the whole PI planning went for all of it and see if we can align the solutions we're making. So we built it up from ground rather than just making everything a solution train. So it really depends in your situation, and I need to know a bit more about the context. Just be careful, just not to automatically make it because you have 2 trains. Maybe they can just talk together.
Yeah, so we have to take care, you know, when you think in setup one of these solution train. No?
Yeah. Okay. And what will help you is that and that's one of the skills and toolkits we'll give you. We're having this value stream and art identification toolkit as part of the class that will help you understand how you construct your agile release trains, or if you need solution trains to do that. So we'll give you the tools and skills, and you'll get to ask a lot more in-depth questions about that during the class, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome.
So I think we are on time, but I don't see any question more. Thank you so much, Arun. It was a pleasure having your experience here with us. It was very, very interesting for me, and I hope for the rest of the more than 60 participants we had today in this meetup organized by Vector Talks. And okay, I'm very excited again about co-teaching with you the Implementing Safe course on November the 10th. And thank you very much from the heart. It was
a pleasure being here. I look very much forward to working with you. And I hope to see some of the people here in the class. Maybe, you never know.
Hopefully. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the participants. Have a nice day and a nice week. See you.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.